So today I'm here with my friend, Devin Christensen. And what's really cool is that Devin's going to share a story with you that, like, a few years ago, you wouldn't have believed, right? And I think that it's so interesting. There, I just tagged you in the video, so make sure that you get some exposure here on social media too, because we're a team. And so I want to share Devin's story with you because it's really important. And, I've always been a firm believer of multiple streams of income. I would rather collect $1,000 10 ways than have all of my eggs in one basket. Okay. I think that creating multiple streams of income and investing in assets that pay you is one of the only ways to build wealth. You can use real estate, you can use investments, you can use all those kinds of things. But really, there's a difference between being rich and being wealthy. And I think rich people know how to make money, but wealthy people know how to get their money making money for them. Right. And I think that's a huge piece of financial stability right now, but also having a backup plan, right? Having something that you've got on the side that if anything goes sideways in your job, we've seen a lot of really interesting things over the last couple of years. I know when I was pregnant with Izzy, I'd been doing hair for 11 years and I had a shoulder injury that stopped me in my tracks. I could no longer do my job. I physically was unable to do my job and I didn't see that coming, and it scared the crap out of me because I thought, oh my God, what if I have no way to bring in money? Well, I have this little baby at home. Now all the financial pressures on my husband. The number one reason that people fight in a marriage is because of finances. I saw my parents go through that. I was like, I'm not willing to have this. Like, that was the one thing with Ryan and I said, I never want to fight with you about money. I would rather work my butt off and make a lot of money, so that's never an issue, than ever argue with you over what we're going to spend it on. And so I want Devin to share her story with you because it's quite something. It's quite impactful. And so Devin, do you want to just tell people where you're from and a little bit about your family?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. First off, obviously, you're here. You know, Christina, I love this lady. She has helped me so much, especially in the last year and a half when I went through a really hard time. She was always so kind, and like she would send me the messages at the right time just to encourage me. I love this lady and I appreciate her so much. So thank you, Christina, for having me. So a little bit about me. I have 3 kids. My oldest is 12. My youngest is 9. So I pumped out 3 kids in 3 years. And I was not planned that way, but it worked out that way. I've been a nurse for 18 years. My husband's a teacher. We live in Washington State, so you can tell the difference. She's in a tank top. I'm in a sweatshirt and a vest, and I'm still cold. But hey, hashtag. Hopefully, I will be living in
See
Cabo
you in
someday.
December. Hashtag
Yes.
see you in December.
Yes, I'm coming to celebrate my birthday with Christina in
Can't wait.
Cabo. But so yeah, that's kind of like who I am. I became a nurse like right away. Like I did what's called Running Start here in the States, where you can go to college while you're still in high school. And so I had all my prereqs done and I launched into nursing school like immediately after high school, and was a nurse by the time I was 20. So I would always joke, like, I was like, I can give you narcotics, I can give you morphine, I can do all the thing. I can't even go buy a drink, And so it was like, I was one of, like becoming a nurse at 20 is like pretty much like the earliest you can. So like, I just guns
You're like
ablaze.
Doogie Howser of nursing.
Yes. Like most of the people in my class in nursing school, they were all like on their second jobs, reinventing themselves. They were moms already, and here I was just this young buck. Like I got married while I was in nursing school and all that stuff. And I loved being a nurse. Like it was definitely what I was called to do in that time of my life. And I was the girl that picked up all the overtime, and I didn't have kids yet. Like I worked extra hard. I loved what I did. I felt like I was really making a difference in people's lives. I've always worked in surgery, like the surgical area, like post-op. So I loved people coming in with a problem and being able to watch them get it fixed and help like them recover and leave like better. Like, that's just what I love. That's why I loved working in surgery. And so all that happened. I start having kids, and then everything changes, right? You like the overtime, all that stuff. You're like, no, I want to be home more. And I remember going back to work after having my first baby. It took 4 months off, which is like the longest you can basically take off in the
I think it's
States.
crazy, by the way. Like, I just need to interject that I think that the fact that you guys, an average person, gets 6 to 8 weeks maternity in the States is absolutely ludicrous when there's that fourth trimester, when your kids need you. Like that, I can imagine how much that shifted. And then also you were doing shift work before then and how disruptive that is to family life.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I took the maximum amount, like they allow you without getting fired, right? So I took the 4 week or months. And I remember coming back, and I was so lucky. My kids all got to be babysat by their grandmas. And a close friend of mine would fill in too. So I never had to send them to daycare or anything. I knew they were with people they loved, but it still tore me apart. I developed depression that fifth, 6th month, like after going back to work. And it was the first time I've ever experienced that. And it was all like, I was just so sad about leaving my baby, like missing out. Like I was working, gone from the home for 14 hours a day, and I just like was missing whole days of her life, and that killed me. And then immediately, like not immediately, but within, 2 years, I was having another baby. And so as that started to happen, like I was like, there has to be a way I can make money at home. Like there has to be something else. And I'm like, God, what is it? I didn't understand like home-based businesses. I go to parties at people's houses and buy stuff and candles and whatever. And I love that. Like I was like, oh, but I didn't know, nobody had ever approached me about a way to make money that way. And so I was really like searching for a way to make some extra money to cut my hours back. Like my goal was to work like 1 or 2 days a week instead of 3 12-hour shifts. When I got exposed to this industry. And like, sorry, I'm just diving right in. Do you want me to keep
No,
going?
no, no, this is great. So here's the thing. I mean, it sounds like you were called to be a nurse. Like this was really what you were meant to do, how you were meant to help people. Like you knew it right off the bat. There's a lot of kids that come out of college and still don't know what they want to do. And you knew right in high school, right? So you got into it. And it was the lifestyle, it was the hours, it was being away from your babies. And even though you had family support and care and friends that were around, you had a village to help raise your kids. I know that pull that you want to be there for them, right? Like until they're ready to branch off, until they're ready to do something different and make friends of their own. Like it's so important as a mom, you want to be able to support your kids. So I really relate to that. And the other thing is like, what did I got to ask you, what does your husband think when you've got like this nursing career that you've worked so hard for, you've done it for many, many years now, you're like, wait a second, I think like there might be something to this online thing, or I might be able to work from home, because it is a different way of thinking, right? There's the career driven people that get into corporate or get into a career, and they are paid every 2 weeks. They have healthcare, they have everything. Entrepreneur life is like completely different than that. There's like no sure thing. There's no healthcare. There's no insurance. There's no nothing. Like it's all on you. And so like, how did your husband feel when you're like, hey, wait a second, I think I just want to spend some more time at home with the kids?
I am really lucky with an extra supportive husband. He was always like, if you're not ready to go back, just take time off, like take the year off. Like he was fine with me. We've never lived above our means. We've always been super financially responsible. And
What's
so
that like?
I know. Well,
like for the majority of people out there that are consumers, right? I mean, I definitely came out of university with like massive debt and like thought, hey, everybody has credit card debt. No, like I didn't know how to manage my money. And so I think that that's really cool.
yeah. I mean, I think my parents were really great about instilling that into me, because we didn't have a lot. And so anything that I wanted, I worked hard for. And so like, I was the girl that would rather put money in my piggy bank than go like spend it on something. And that's just who I've been. And so obviously my husband I've always kind of managed the money, not because my husband doesn't want to, but just because I like that. And so we've always been pretty responsible about what we're buying, and we're not extravagant people. We're happy with simple things. So he was super supportive, which I was thankful for. And when I told him that, he was the one like, just take more time off, and I was like, no, I got to put more money in my savings account. I got to keep making money somehow, like I was the one that was like, so I always had his support. And when I started like this other business, I started in a makeup company because I wanted to get a discount on my makeup because I'm also very frugal. And so I didn't want to
Good
spend
reason.
$40 for a tube of mascara. I was like, and my friend had just started it, my best friend actually. And she's like, well, do you know you can join and like get it for, I don't even remember what the deal, like half off. I don't remember
I'm
how it all
in.
worked.
I'm in.
Yeah. I was like, okay, I'll join for it. And then, one thing leads to the other. You see a couple inspirational stories. I saw some women who were talking about leaving their jobs and that this business was changing their lives, and they had come home and now they were making $80,000 a month. And I was like, whoa,
What?
what?
Not
Like that?
not possible.
No, I was like, that's what I'm more than I'm making in a year as like a nurse, And I'm like, okay, like, what do I need to do and how do I do it? Like, and I was like, if she can do it, this lady who was like older than me, like in her 40s, like not, like I was in my 20s, late 20s at the time, or early 30s. I was like, I can do this. And so that's when I got kind of crazy. And I was like, I will do whatever it takes to make this happen. And so I started doing that.
Okay, can
And
I just want to pause
yeah,
you for a second because that statement, I will do whatever it takes to make this happen. If you came in with that attitude for any business, you would succeed for
yeah,
any business. And I think a lot of the times, people see people marketing stuff on social media and they see them working online and doing online marketing or social retail or whatever it is. And they're like, no, people aren't really successful at that. It's just like a handful of people.
yeah.
And it really has to do with your mindset and what you're willing to do to change your life, because nothing will change if you don't change, right? And so I really love that. Like, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get to where I want to go. That was the exact same attitude I had and was able to create a six-figure income within a year because I was just like, you tell me what to do and I will do it. I will learn in the process. I'll make mistakes, but I'll figure it out along the way. And so I commend you for having that attitude when you've got 3 kids or 2 kids or 3 kids at the time.
I had my third by that
So
time.
3 kids at home. I commend you because so many people, I got 3 kids at home. I got a job. I don't have time for this. And you're like, but wait a second, there's something to this. And often I'll say that to people that are looking into online business. They're like, I don't know if it's for me. I'm not good at sales. Well, nobody's good when they get started. It's, what are you willing to do? Are you coachable? Are you willing to dig in and learn new skills? Are you willing to do things a little bit differently and maybe put yourself out there in a way that you haven't before, in order to create the lifestyle that you want? So I think that that's really important, Devin, and I really commend you for that, actually.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, it definitely, like, I took a lot of inspiration from the people that had gone ahead of me, and I was like,
Sure.
I can do this. And so I started doing it, and I didn't do it in the right way though. Like
Nobody
I
does.
was like, cause I was in online, like, we were doing online parties, makeup parties. And let me tell you, hosting a 10-day lash bash is a lot of work.
Wow.
And like you had to
Wow.
have like 10, 15 lash bashes going, and you're posting in it multiple times a day and doing lives and like all this stuff. And I was on this thing all the time. I got to the point where my oldest, who was probably 5 or 6, said, Mommy, do you love your phone more than me? And I was like, ugh. And at that point, I had been able to cut back my hours. I was working 2 shifts instead of 3. So that's considered part-time. But I thought, oh my gosh, I'm not doing this right. And I was feeling just life's being sucked out of me too. You know what I mean? I felt addicted to this because I felt like if I missed anybody's comment or message, I was missing my $7 commission check for their whatever they bought,
Yeah.
And I was like, there has to be a different way. Like I was feeling the joy getting sucked out of me, but I was still so motivated to make it work,
And isn't it interesting as a mom? We feel guilty when we're working and our kids are at home, but then we feel guilty when we're playing with our kids that we're not working.
Yeah.
There's like a whole new level of mom guilt when you work from home because your kids are there. And then a whole new level of work guilt that you're not working harder because you're spending time with your kids. Like, I think that there's a massively skewed idea of what success looks like. And I think there's a massive skew on how people find their happiness, because we've been conditioned to find happiness and success or whatever that looks like in our careers. But really, most women discover in their 30s that it's a balance of career, marriage, and family that makes them happy, right? So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just like there's some huge points that I want to suck out of this because it's so important. So you're at home with your 3 kids, and having your son say that to you, oh my God.
Yeah, it was a gut check, and it happened like right before I left for
like a conference or something.
Yeah, a conference for Most Powerful Women in Network Marketing. And I went to that. It was the first like conference I'd been to that wasn't just like my company's conference. And so I saw some amazing, amazing humans speaking. And I was like I really didn't know about the industry outside of that company I was in, because that's all I had known. And I thought I loved everything about it. I thought like really like I was like, why sister for life, never gonna leave, like this is my jam. And I went to this event. I saw some amazing people speaking from all different companies, and I started following them, some of the ones that really like connected with me. And I started seeing things were very different than what I thought I had to do, right? Like that there was a different way and that people were succeeding with different ways. And that's when I got introduced to where I am now. Because one of the ladies I started following, and she would talk a lot about like the freedom that they had and the duplicatable systems and how they utilize like this ATM process. And I was like, oh my gosh, that would change my life. And then I found out what the product line was. It was way more in alignment with me than makeup. I mean, I like makeup, but I'm not like, you can tell I'm not like all glammed out all the time. I'm pretty like casual. And this was like health and wellness. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's health and wellness. It seems better. So I made a huge pivot. It literally was 2 months of me in agony because I thought like it took me 3 years to build to where I was making about $2,000 a month, which really in the scheme of things, I mean, that's nice, but it's not like amazing for all the time I was putting in for 3 years. I had a team of 300. But I was like, I just felt like I had to change. So I made the pivot, launched with this new business. That first month I made over $2,000 just,
in the first month.
Yes. And I was like, okay, and so I just dived in and, I started building quickly and was able to cut my hours back as a nurse more and more. Went on call, which means like they would just, like I give them a couple days a month. And this is when the world started to change.
Yeah.
And I did not want to stop being a nurse. It is part of my identity.
Yes,
I mean, 18 years. Yeah. And I do love like being able to help people like that. I didn't want to leave, but I didn't want to be there full time. You know what I mean? Like I was really happy with the balance I had, because honestly, working from home full time can be its own challenge. Like yes. I live in a small town. I don't get to see a lot of people outside of like sports and events, And so like, I actually enjoyed going to my 2 days a month of work because I got to see people. I got to help people a little bit. I got to like give in a different way that wasn't just via a screen. You know what I mean? But yeah. I absolutely wouldn't change for a world. Like I love being my own boss and having my own schedule and being able to say yes to my kids. If my kids need to stay home sick, it's not a big deal. Like just all those things. Like that's what I wanted. And I had that and I was so happy. But then the world changed. And where I live, like if you didn't follow certain government mandates, you got terminated from your job.
Right.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Here's what before we get into that, and I hope it's okay that I bring this up. You also lost your dad. Mm-hmm. Not going to make you cry. I'm not going to cry. Okay.
Yeah.
But you also lost your dad and went through a really challenging time with your dad. And one of the hardest things that I observed from you, now I'm going to cry. The hardest thing that I observed from you, like, I don't like seeing people in pain. I'm empathic. It like hurts me when I see other people that I care about in pain. And I think the hardest thing for you was realizing in this circumstance, you couldn't help him. You couldn't help him as a nurse. You had spent your life dedicated to that career and you couldn't help him. And you knew what they were doing wasn't helping him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that summer that the world 2020 happened, right? And I kind of like stepped away from nursing, but I was still doing the on-call. Then it comes the next year. And my dad, during the summertime, fell, and it was during still like the mandate. So only one person a day could go into the hospital and all this stuff. And so I took him into the hospital where I thought was a better hospital for him to go to because of the rules, right? I take him in. They admit him with a back fracture and all this stuff. And like, I took him in and I was there with him that very first day. And I just felt like a pit in my stomach the whole day. Like I knew like I would put the call light on. I could do most of the stuff I needed to for my dad. And I would, like, I was getting him up to the bathroom. I was doing all the things with him, but like I needed the nurses for certain things, like they had to give him his meds. They had to do this. And like, I would put the call lights on and they'd be on for 45 minutes. And I would eventually just walk out and be like, hello, I need some help in here.
Yeah.
And I was just like, and my dad could barely move. Like he had fractured his spine. He was in a big old body cast. And I just felt I remember coming home from that day and I was so physically exhausted because watching someone you love be in the most pain they've ever been in is
horrible.
Hard. And then I was literally physically moving him all day. And I didn't want to leave, but they made me leave because of visiting hours. And I just knew, like, I remember I wrote a big old Facebook post about it, how I felt like so sad for the nurses because they were so understaffed, but I felt so worried about my dad. And I left and I made a decision to not go back that day and let my sister go back. And she is a chaplain and works in a hospital, so she has some medical knowledge. So I felt like, okay, this will be good. I need the day because I'm exhausted. And she went back, and my dad was basically comatose by the time she got there in the morning. They had just completely neglected him, and his oxygen levels were so low, but they weren't registering. They weren't picking it up. His blood sugar was like 800. Like they basically just neglected him all night. I don't know if anyone checked on him, what happened, and he ended up coding and they weren't able to revive him. And that gutted me as a nurse because I couldn't be there. I would have gone if I could have just gone for part of the day. You know what I mean? Like, and I know it all worked out. God didn't want me there. If I would have seen my dad coding like my sister,
I can't even imagine. Yeah.
I would be still like in therapy. I mean, you know what I mean? But
I get it. Yeah. Because
the system killed him. I believe I have the documentation, the labs, like,
yeah,
he would not have died if he would have gotten care. And it's so hard that I put him in the hands of my people, and they let me down, they failed him. And then part of it is like, you feel so bad because, those nurses were all just so overworked. Like the hospitals are all on,
that's
so
right.
It's like this catch 22 of like, who am I mad at? Who am I mad at?
The system, this whole system, right? And so I'm sorry to bring that up about your dad, but I feel like it's a really important piece to understanding like the breakdown of that system and like how that's all, because, right now, okay, healthcare might be falling apart or, people are overworked. Well, there's also not enough staff in the hospital. There hasn't been enough staff for years, by the way, in the hospital, right, to take care of enough patients. But then to go through what we did the last couple of years and then face a threat in your job. And so not only was it you that faced having to make a really difficult decision to walk away from your job, but it was your husband too. And he's a high school football coach. Is that right?
And teacher. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And teacher. Yeah. And so you got put in this position that not only had you seen the medical system fail your dad, not only is it understaffed, not only are people walking off the job for that reason, because they believed in medical freedom, right? All of those things were happening at the exact same time. But now your husband's job is under threat too. So you were in a very stressful situation and you were kind of getting hit at all angles. And one thing that I do want to mention is because over the past couple of years, there's been a lot of instances whether I've gone to a hotel and there hasn't been room service or cleaning between that. You can't find staff, right? Back home in BC, they were canceling ferry rides because they couldn't find staff to show up for their jobs, right? They were actually offering like some $10,000 incentive to work on the ferry if you referred somebody that stayed for 3 months. And everyone's like, oh, nobody wants to work. And I was like, can I just point this out without pointing it out? But like, probably 30% of people walked off the job because they wanted their medical freedom. And so we've created this environment, and it's doubled down and made it worse in the healthcare system.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, within a month and a half of my dad passing, my hospital system terminated 800 staff members. They were already severely understaffed, and 800 from the housekeeping to the nurses to the doctors, you know, like all together in the system, which is just like, and they're still haven't recovered. They still haven't brought them back in my state. They still are. I mean, hospitals are on divert. I mean, right now, like all this cold and flu stuff and all the RSVs happening up here. I keep seeing, like, it breaks my heart. I keep seeing all these moms that can't get their babies in right now. Like, it breaks my heart because we've created this monster.
We've created this problem. It's a broken system. And so when this came to be, I know that your husband ended up getting religious exemption. So he's okay. He kept his job, but you decided that you were going to lean into your plan B.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I had been building, and it had been, like I said, it had come to a place where I was able to walk, you know, go on call, but I decided, you know what, I'm going to let nursing go for now. Like, it's not where I'm supposed to be. And I just went all in with my online business. And it was crazy that during that time, like, it flourished, right? Like, I remember even the month my dad died, I wasn't online at all. I was, a mess. And my business, I sold over $10,000 in product because of the way the systems were set up.
That's right.
People didn't, you know, they were just ordering and getting the things that they needed. And that just blew my mind. Like, I was really nervous. You get a little nervous, you know, when you're your own business owner, if you take a break, that like things grew. And so I leaned into my plan B, and I mean, it saved our lives in a lot of ways, you know, like without this, I would have just lost my income, like completely. Like, we would have had to, for me to work as a nurse still, I had girlfriends, and it still pains me. They had to get traveling assignments and go stay a week and get to come home for 2 or 3 days to see their family in other areas so that they could continue. A lot of them still needed health insurance and different things. So they had to find these different ways to work, but they couldn't work in their own community, or they moved. Their whole family picked their whole family up and had to leave. To be
weird. I don't know anything about that.
I know, right? Exactly. You know, and it's just heartbreaking, you know, really, for some families, like a blessing, right? Like, you look at it now, like, and you're so thankful you had that push, because like, you know, you've said before, you may not have done it. Like, it was scary. It was a leap that you were scared, but like, look how much it's blessed you, you know? And for me, like, like, parts of me are still have like a little bit of anger, you know, I mean, there's some anger there still, but I'm like, I am so glad I've been home with my family through this time. Like, my daughter went through some major issues with anxiety, and we had to bring her home from school. And I've been here to help her with that. You know, she's doing so much better now. But like, if I had been working, like, I wouldn't have been able to be there to support her. And she needed someone with her like 24/7 for a little bit.
She needed her mom.
Yeah. And, you know, it's like God knew. I just, like, if I wouldn't have gotten this bug 5-6 years ago about online business and seen the vision, like, I don't know what our lives would look like right now. Like, I don't know what it would look like. Like, would we have had to move? Would I have had to do something I really felt in my soul was not right for me? What choice would I make? I don't know. But I'm so glad I didn't have to make those choices, because I had this plan B. I had this freedom. And, you know, I have other girls that I work with on my team. A lot of my team is nurses that, like, they got to make their healthcare choice because they had a plan B. You know what I mean? Some people felt like they didn't have any other option but to do what they were being told to keep things safe. But these girls got to make the choice that they felt was right for their bodies. And because they had this plan B, you know, and
I feel like that is the most important thing. I always say that freedom is truly just having options. That's what freedom is and sometimes money provides that. Sometimes opportunity provides that. But I know to this day, people who cannot go and see their dying family members because they refuse to do that. And it's just like, that hasn't stopped. And I know people that got very ill getting it because they had to see their dying family members, because they were backed into a corner and they had to make that decision. And I think that, you know, in a world where we're launching into the gig economy, where you can have multiple streams of income, you can diversify in multiple different ways, you can find ways to create wealth that were never there before, that you've got to start looking at other options, and you've got to have different opportunities to make money. Because if one thing fails, or if you get backed into a corner and you have to make a decision that you don't want to make, and you make it anyways, you have to live with the consequences.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, you know, for you to be such a voice in that community and show nurses in that environment who were on the front lines the whole freaking time, who were there for us when we needed them, were there for our communities, were there for everyone that was sick, for you to give them another option when they're, you know, quite frankly, their higher ups didn't have their back. Yeah. Right. I think that that is such a powerful thing. And really what it made me realize, and it probably the same thing with you, what it made me realize is that when you take absolute ownership of your life, there are going to be challenges. It's going to be hard. That life is hard, right? You're going to face grief. You're going to face challenges. You're going to face decisions that are very difficult, but you get to choose in those circumstances. And when you make decisions that allow you to choose, it changes the game, and you can't go back to the way things were before.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree.
And so now your hubby's he's still coaching and teaching. And so that's great. And I know that you guys are huge football fans, and you spend a lot of your weekends doing that. You have transitioned out of nursing into this social retail world, which we are all obsessed with, you know, in a time like this where, you know, so many people are scared to say the R word, like, oh, we're in a recession. Okay. Life isn't always up, up, up. There's always going to be ebbs and flows of business. There's always going to be ebbs and flows of life. But when you get to show people how to move through it, it changes everything. So tell me a little bit about, you know, what your lifestyle looks like now as opposed to what it did then. Like, you were tied to certain hours, you were tied to, you know, somebody else telling you what time off you got, you were tied to, you know, certain scheduling and whatnot, and not being there for the family. But like now that you guys have this freedom and you're building social retail, tell me a little bit more about what life looks like on the other side.
Yeah, well, you know, for me, a lot of it comes down to my kids, you know, like, I mean, there's moments where I'm in the car, like I take my kids to school every morning. I mean, they could ride the bus, but I choose to take them. I take them to all their sports practices. I'm at every practice that I choose to be. I'm at every game. You know, when you have 3 kids that are active, like, for me, that's like what life's all about. I mean, you know, I look at one of the advantages I have is kind of this perspective is, my husband's a high school coach. And so I watch these moms graduate their kids out, you know, of high school, and watch them, like, I get to know these families pretty well. And I watch them say goodbye to their kid, and they tell me how quickly it goes by, you know, like, oh my gosh, I just wish I could like get one more football game or one more whatever, you know, that makes me emotional. And I think I'm so thankful that I get to be a part of all of it. You know, like, I get to be like, I'm the dugout mom. I'm the, you know, like, I'm on the football board for my youth, you know, like, I'm involved. I volunteer in my kids' classroom once a week. Like, kids, like, you know, they finally let volunteers come back to the school this year. And when kids see me in the school, they're like, what are you doing here? I'm like, oh, I'm just here to help read or help do math. Like, and I've had so many kids say, I wish my mom could do that, you know? Yeah. And like, for me, that's the biggest lifestyle thing. You know, my husband's still tied to a schedule. He loves his job. He loves what he does, and God's gifted him. I mean, he's a great blessing to so many kids, you know? And so I love that I just get to support him in that. I get to support him and make life like easy at home for him so he can go do his thing. But, you know, like, it's Thanksgiving's tomorrow here in the States. I would be working most likely. Yeah. Like, I would be missing holidays. We would be juggling around whatever. But I get to be present with my kids. And that's what it's all about for me, is being present. You know, I have the flexibility to travel. I love traveling. Not always with my husband because his job isn't as flexible, but like, we have the whole summer off together, you know? So like, we get to just pick up and go, do what we want, be really spontaneous. And we have, my dad passed a boat down to us when he passed away. And so it's like, we get to just go to the lake whenever, whatever, if it's a beautiful day in the summer, we just get to pick up and go. Like, I don't have to take any time off. I don't have to tell anybody like, hey, I'm not going to be here. We just go. And I mean, I'm so thankful for that. So we get to spend more time together as a family than we ever have, without anybody else to answer to.
Yeah. And, and I misspoke. You said, I'm so thankful. And I'm like, we're so lucky. And luck is a very interesting way to put it, because the gratitude that we have for what we've created is unparalleled to anything else. Like, I sometimes say to Ryan, like, can you believe we get paid to be healthy? Can you believe that we get paid to help other people make money? Can you believe that we get to be that light for people? Like, how cool is that? But when you say luck, a lot of the time that discredits all the hard work, or it discredits, an opportunity that came up. Oh, I'm so lucky I got that opportunity. And it actually has nothing to do with it. What makes you successful is having the ability to recognize an opportunity and take advantage of it. Right. Yeah. To realize and maybe see the future 3 steps ahead, that this may be something that could be advantageous for our family, for our finances. There, I told you my laundry's on, could change all of those things if we have the ability to pivot. Right. And like, now more than ever, it's time to pivot. Right. Yeah. People are recognizing that. They're realizing that as they're seeing less and less room on their credit cards, because, things like gas and grocery and electric are all going on their credit card. They're seeing, it being harder to pay their mortgage because their mortgage has gone up $500 for the month or $300 for the month. They're having a harder time saving money. Right. But when you have multiple streams of income and you can diversify across all genres, all streams of income, then all of a sudden it doesn't seem so stressful anymore. Like, all of a sudden you're like, okay, it's just not on this one thing. It's not on this. Like, I don't feel like I'm stuck. I have this opportunity to change the way that things are. And that's exactly what you've created. I mean, I feel the same way. Like, I'm going to leave in an hour and walk and pick up Izzy. And like, my favorite part of the day is walking her home for 15, 20 minutes and having that conversation with her about school, and I don't ever want to give that up. And so I just created a lifestyle where I was able to do that. Right.
So, because like, in the scheme of things, it's those small moments that are going to matter, like, to us, it's the time that we spent with those that we loved, not the things that we have, you know what I mean?
Right.
So
100%. I mean, we learned that moving down here. We moved down here with 8 suitcases. One of them was full of Christmas presents. So we lived in for 8 months with 7 suitcases and just realized we don't need all this stuff. Like, all this stuff is just not even important. What's important is us. Right. And so I think that that's the lesson that came out of the last couple of years is like, either it drove families apart or it brought you together. And it brought you together in a way that allowed you to build a life that maybe you wouldn't have had before. So Devin, I just want to thank you so much for being here today, for having this conversation, for sharing your heart and your experience and how you've created a life outside of a career that you thought you'd have forever. Like, I just think so highly of you for doing that and for having the courage to do that. So thank you very much for
thank you so much for having me. I know we've been trying to do this for a while.
Oh, good, my friend.
I love you. And I
love
that.
you too.
If you think this video can help a friend, make sure you share it.